In an age when humanity suffocates beneath the weight of its own interpretations, consciousness itself seems wary from the endless proliferation of opinions. Every explanation, meant to clarify, only adds another layer of fog. Reality retreats into a labyrinth of reflections until the thing itself disappears beneath the varnish of meanings. The mind, trapped in the gears of its own reasoning, no longer perceives the object before it, but merely circles endlessly around its own attempts to understand. In its exhausted silence, where words no longer touch being, there stirs a longing for primordial gaze, a return to what existed before language. Phenomenology was born not as another philosophical system, but as a cry to awaken vision. It sought to restore to human beings the lost capacity to see the world as it is, before the intellect dissects and classifies it by stripping perception of its habitual associations. This turn toward the immediate was an act of defiance against civilization that confuses description with reality, replacing living presence with conceptual scaffolding. Hence the call to return to the things themselves, a final refuge for authentic experience. The world, deafened by the noise of countless voices, demanded a moment of silence to hear its own pulse again. The phenomenological method became less a form of analysis than a kind of purification, a washing of the eyes, through which the thing once more emerges in its original nakedness. This return was not nostalgia, nor a naive yearning for simplicity. It was a deliberate movement beyond fatigue, toward a source where meaning had not yet solidified into doctrine. It was driven by a burning desire to recover the primal trust in what is visible, in that which reveals itself without mediation, as if the world were being seen for the first time through eyes that had never known names. Experience always evades confinement. It carries within itself something that no definition can capture, arising where thought touches presence, where the mind tries to give shape to what resists being shaped. To rationalize experience is to turn it into a shadow of itself, a thin residue from which the living breath has vanished the instant it was pinned down. Every true experience resists completion. It cannot be exhausted by concepts, for it contains an excess that escapes measure. Rational description may outline its contour, but beyond that outline, the inexpressible still vibrates, the tremor of fear, the quiver of joy, the bitterness of loss. Within that untranslatable residue, human presence endures, anchored in existence. Experience cannot be annulled because it carries more than the knowledge of an event. It holds a trace of being itself. It seeps into memory, crystallizing into the inner architecture of perception that shapes how we see the world thereafter. Even what is forgotten persists, in the pauses between words, in the inflection of a phrase, in the way one's eyes linger on a face. Reasoning cannot uproot that sediment any more than one can remove lived time from the fabric of life. Rationalization may explain, but it cannot reanimate. It resembles a map from which the river has been drained. Thus, experience remains the irreversible testimony of consciousness encountering what exceeds its bounds. It dwells at the threshold between clarity and mystery, and it is precisely this tension that makes it the wellspring of meaning beyond logic, yet essential to the understanding of human existence. Edmund Husserl, the German philosopher who founded phenomenology, sought to restore philosophy's lost intimacy with experience. His works, Logical Investigations, Ideas for a Pure Phenomenology, and The Crisis of European Sciences, were devoted to uncovering the foundations of consciousness and describing how things appear before they are captured by theory. His ambition was to build a precise science of experience, revealing how the world's meaning arises from the ceaseless stream of consciousness itself. For Husserl, philosophy's task was not to dismantle the world, but to return it to its self-evident reality.